Caleb, what did you grow up understanding about hell?
My conception of hell was very straightforward. Hell was the place for those who were not saved. And as the saying goes, to hell with everybody who's not saved. That's essentially the gist of it. If you're not with me, you're against me. And my conception of it was, again, just to reiterate that point, but beyond that, to not really pity those that are in hell. They're there for their own reasons. And they're there because God deemed them unworthy of heaven or whatever the case might be. So God said they're supposed to be there, so all is well at the end of the day. So that was how I was taught, generally speaking, what hell was. It was a place of punishment for those who deserved it. But don't worry, Caleb. You don't deserve hell because you're my son, and I've taught you well, so you have nothing to worry about. So yeah, it doesn't matter how many times you tell them you have nothing to worry about. You tell somebody how terrible hell is.
What did they teach you in the first? If you have nothing to worry about and you're their son and you're not going there, why do you think they even taught it to you?
I honestly, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
that's a great question.
Why does any Christian who thinks that their children are the best, or that their children are saved, or that God would do the righteous thing by them and save their children, why would you even teach them about hell when that's a traumatic thing to teach a child? Ask yourself that.
I would ask specific questions about demons and exorcisms and laying of hands and healings and things like that. And so demonology came up quite a bit throughout this process. And my stepfather was a minister, and he was a real fire and brimstone type. So he didn't mind, preaching the homosexuals will be burning forever. One of those kinds at the pulpit. Like, let the homosexuals burn. Nobody shed a tear for those poor bastards.
It's funny how that's always the most important group that needs to go to hell.
Yeah, that's always at the forefront.
Forget the rapists, forget the murderers, forget child sex traffickers. Let's go straight to the homosexuals. That's the most important group.
If we're comparing terminology for what is homosexuality, the same word is used for those that eat pork. Same word.
What?
Same like contempt God has for both of those.
Idea. Yeah, detestable, right? Or abominable.
Abomination,
or depending on what translation you're in. Yeah, eating shrimp is abominable. Yeah. Which,
Well, it just pisses me off because there's no theological consistency within Christianity. Because if the law is for the Jews, or it was done away with because of Jesus, then essentially that doesn't mean sin exists anymore. But somehow you pick the one sin that you just don't like, culturally speaking. But then the rest of them it's in the same damn book, Leviticus, right? Like, how do you get away with that? I don't know. Sorry, off.
I remember the first serious personal conversation, not at the pulpit conversation, that my stepfather had with me about hell was when I was talking about something that my neighbor was my best friend at the time, and all throughout elementary school, and he came from a family of Mormons, and they had different ideas about the Bible and hell and this, that, and the other, and I can't even remember what it was that I had said. But all I do remember was that my stepdad, Jack, he said flat out, don't listen to a damn thing that kid and his family have to say. They might be nice people, okay? They're good people. But when it comes to the Bible, okay, I've been trained, and I'm not just by seminary, okay? The Lord speaks to me, okay? And let me tell you, these people, they're good intentioned, but the devil has their hearts, okay? So you can't listen to them because the devil's deceiving them so he can deceive you, okay? So this conversation ended up being one of those conversations where he ended up saying to me, as calmly and casually as he could, that every single one of them were going to hell, even though they were good, nice, kind people. And that was the first time in my life where I'd had a real serious conversation about hell, insofar as it affecting the people that I care about. Like, people at the pulpit, by and large, as far as I'm concerned, they're not going to hell. It's not something that really comes up in your mind, at least not for me when I was growing up. But this is the first time somebody pointed at somebody that I knew, that I cared a lot about, and said, yeah, no, they're going to hell. I mean, they're good people and all. But
did you think that made sense, Caleb? Did that make sense to you when you were a child?
That was something that never sat well with me, ever.
Did you question it, or were you allowed to?
I did question it. I will say this: for as fundamentalist as my parents were, they never once came down on me if I had questions. They didn't give me a bunch of shit for it. They gave everybody else a bunch of crap for it, and they came down hard on everybody else. I can't explain it. I got lucky. I don't know what the case is, but whenever I had questions, they would calmly answer the questions and as best as they could. I mean, obviously with a bias agenda, but I mean,
yeah,
I never got crap for asking questions. I'll say that.
I'll ask this question to both of you. Did you get a sense when you were learning, when you believed in the doctrine of hell, whichever version of it you believed in, did you get a sense that this kind of painted God in a negative light, that it kind of made him seem evil?
Mm-hmm.
Scary. It wasn't an evil thing. I'm sorry, you were asking her. Sorry.
No, I'm asking both of you, but I'll let you out.
To me, it wasn't evil. It was scary.
Why was it,
you know, like fear the God that you're supposed to love, but that doesn't mean that God is evil. That's that programming that was going through my brain. Like, it's a spooky thought, but it's not something that was per se evil. Hindsight, absolutely, this is abhorrent to me. And in retrospect, I think any doctrine of any Christian religion that teaches a doctrine of hell, I think is just outright false. I mean, provably false by virtue of the fact that we're talking about a maximally or omni God. I don't care which God you prefer. It doesn't matter. I would argue that that particular God cannot create hell. It just doesn't. It's not possible for a God like that to do so. Efficiency. Okay, we expect this God to be perfect. He's already paid the price, the maximal price, the ultimate price. All right, this price pays all prices.
And what is that price, Caleb?
God blood, as far as I'm aware. I think that's what it was. It was God blood.
God blood.
Yeah,
I like that term.
So he paid the ultimate price. I understand that God blood was spilled, but I don't know what he paid. I don't know what the sacrifice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the debt. I wanted to put it in monetary terms because I think this is how most people, how Christians teach it. Anyways, it's more like a debt. Anyway, the debt is sin. We owe some sort of debt by virtue of the fact that we sin. It's as though every time we sin, but just by having sin in our hearts, we have a deficit. And God is willing to pay that deficit if we just accept Jesus Christ into our hearts. That's essentially the gist of the analogy as far as I'm aware. But my issue with this analogy is that the debt has already been paid. So if we, by the ultimate debt payer, it's like somebody with an unlimited amount of money has already paid all debts, and yet there's still people that go bankrupt.
Well, the thing is, Caleb, it's a lie. You see, the debt hasn't been paid. The debt has only been paid theoretically if you accept Jesus into your heart. But if you don't, then you're not receiving of the forgiveness of that loan. You know, it's really a, you know.
Well, then my point here though would be that the God blood sacrifice was extremely overkill. This does not bode of perfection to me. This bodes of a real inefficiency. Even I mean, just think about it. You've paid an infinite amount more money to pay off the debt than was required. An infinite amount.
Yeah,
I would argue absolutely superfluous and unnecessary. Overkill, over the top. Does not bode of perfection. There's a deficiency here, and we're talking about a perfect being, or at least as close to a perfect being as we can possibly conceive.
I would say that's a good argument for people who actually believe that Jesus paid the ultimate death, the ultimate sacrifice. I would argue that he didn't pay shit because nothing was lost. There was no sacrifice because he rose again after a day and a half and now gets to rule the universe. So I don't know what was lost there. There was nothing. He didn't lose anything. He gained everything. He already had everything. So none of this makes any sense as far as sacrificing goes.
When I was going through my deconversion process, there was this tantalizing idea that maybe I'm just flat out wrong about this, not just me, but my parents. Maybe hell isn't this forever thing. And so I started looking into different ideas. You brought up annihilationism. I actually think that's great. From day one, once I heard that was even a thing. By the way, it took me until I was in my 20s to even know that this was a thing, that this was an idea that floats out there in the ether somewhere. I had no idea that there were Christians out there that thought that hell was only for the absolute most extreme, and the vast majority of people that don't go to heaven just cease to exist. They just pop out of existence. Then there's also the people that I don't know of too many Christians that think that hell isn't a permanent thing, that it, you pay your sentence, you do your time, and you go to heaven. But then I've also run into a handful of oh, I know the word. There's a word where everybody goes to heaven. Universalists.
Universalists.
Yeah, universalists. That last one, the latter, caught my attention right out the gate. The annihilation theory was something that as soon as I had realized that my neighbors were going to hell, my best friend, that was my immediate belief. When I had we've gotten into my 20s, I was like, you know what? I can't believe that because I can't do it. I can't do that. I would rather them not exist than have to suffer forever. So that was my first initial thing. But then I actually kind of, for a brief stint, I thought maybe there was something to that universalism thing.
Well,
but it didn't last long because I was an atheist almost immediately after that. Like,